Hello, welcome into the Let's Talk Network. Today we are talking NBA. We are going to do a little tier ranking for each NBA team on where we see them heading into the season. As you all know, this is the dead period of the NBA season. Most trades have gone through, with the obvious exception being the Dame Lillard trade. The draft has happened, free agency has happened, and so we feel pretty settled about where the roster of most teams will be.
Yeah.
So
obviously, with the exception of the Blazers and Heat, we might talk about them a little bit more when we get to them.
yeah,
But like Tanner said, most teams are set in stone in their ways right now.
yeah, where we at least know what they're going to look like at the beginning of the season. So without further ado, let's get into it. The Milwaukee Bucks.
I think this is a fringe favorite. No, not fringe. A lock for favorites here. It's their they got Giannis Antetokounmpo,
Yeah,
Drew Holiday, Brook Lopez. They were able to sign Chris Middleton back, get Brook Lopez back. The team's basically the same. I think they get a little worse, obviously, just with aging stars with Holiday and Lopez. But when you have Giannis Antetokounmpo on your team, one of, if not the best player in the league, you're bound to be a favorite.
yeah, that's where I would go as well. Definitely a favorite. The one thing that does concern me is the age. We've seen that they've had injuries over the past few years. And, after their 2021 title run, they obviously haven't done it again since then, haven't even made it out of the second round since then. And so, I do think there's reasons for concern, but I also think that they're a clear favorite. I mean, when you have either the best or second best player in the world on your team, you're going to be a contender. I think they've kind of got a 2-year window here that they need to maximize before the Bucks kind of need to start thinking about what the next era with Giannis looks like.
Because can Chris Middleton come back from his seemingly season-long injury hiatus where he was on and off all year long? And can he be productive? I think that's one of my biggest question marks for this team is, can Chris Middleton be the Chris Middleton that Giannis needs? Can he be that number two? Or are we going to give that to Drew Holiday this next coming season? Can Chris Middleton take that role upon him to be that third option?
Yeah, because Chris Middleton was kind of that guy that got you buckets in the clutch, the kind of guy that could create his own shot where, when it was tougher for Giannis, when they were kind of double teaming or triple teaming him, he was the guy that you would go to at the end of games to, hit that clutch step back to, put you up 3.
Yeah, so that's my biggest question mark. So if Chris Middleton come in, be as good or just be relatively as similar production, like that team's going to be awesome. And
Yeah.
we all know how good the Bucks can be. Obviously, NBA champions.
Okay. Yeah, just warning, we're going to be organizing them in the tiers as well. So left will be the best in that tier, and at the end of the list will be the worst in that tier.
Perfect.
So let's move on to the Nets. Where do you see the Nets as far as these 6 tiers go?
See, it's interesting to me because I see a young team with a lot of very similar players. I really like Cam Thomas. I really like when he has the ball in his hands and he can create his own shot. I like Mikal Bridges a lot. I also really like Nick Claxton. With that being said, I think they're a fringe or lottery team. The Nets, they could surprise some people, make some pretty good runs, be competitive. But I just don't feel like they have that guy that could take them over the top. As much as I think Mikal Bridges can be productive, I think he's stuck on 23 max points a game. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, as much as I like Mikal Bridges, I do think it was a little bit of a mirage. He's not going to be up there in the 27, 28 points a game. That's not who he is as a player. I do think he'll probably be around 20 to 23, like Ethan mentioned. But yeah, I think fringe would be best case for them. But with this roster, they're pretty devoid of talent and talent with the ball in their hand. I think defensively they'll be able to hang, but can they score? I think that we saw the answer was no. After the trades happened with Kyrie and Kevin Durant at midseason, they were pretty terrible since then. And they really only made the playoffs because of the big, huge head start that they got with KD and Kyrie for half a season on their team.
And I think something for them as well is they're in that pack in the East where it's just brutal. You got a lot of teams that are fighting for a playoff spot, and I feel like those other teams have a better chance. They have a number one, they have a number two that can really compete, and I think that's what hinders the Nets. I think defensively this team's going to be crazy. The switchability on this team is amazing, but I think, like Tanner brought up, offensively they do look like they're going to be a little lackluster, and that's going to hurt them.
So what do you think? Lottery? A higher lottery?
High lottery, very low fringe, if anything.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
The Knicks. This is an interesting one.
I think this Knicks team is a prime example of one of those teams that are fighting for a higher playoff spot that are going to make the Nets fall. The Nets aren't better than this Knicks team. And I feel like this Knicks team is going to be probably a lower, for me, they're a lower playoff hopeful. I feel like they've proven that they can make in the playoffs and have pretty decent runs. But as we know with Tom Thibodeau basketball teams, like when it comes to playoff time, the 40-minute starters doesn't matter. So it just changes up completely. So
for me, they would probably be near the top of playoff hopefuls. Because I do think that they're kind of a team that's made to win regular season games.
Yeah.
They're a team that, while I don't think that they can even make the conference finals or can make the finals, let alone win it, I do think that, they'll probably be in there. They'll probably make it either a competitive first round or they might win. But yeah, I think they're in the hopeful. There's no guarantee that they make it, but they would be kind of near the top of hopeful for me.
And again, I think this kind of all relies on, can RJ Barrett make that jump up? Can Julius Randle keep up this efficient, very, very good defensively, offensive player that he has been the last few years and stuff like that. So I think they have a lot of question marks, but if those question marks can become more positives, I think they're definitely in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, they've got a lot of question marks as it relates to postseason basketball, I think.
Yeah.
I really like Jalen Brunson, but he's not a number one.
No.
I'm not even sure if he's a number two, but he's definitely a good player.
6'1" guards.
Yeah,
it's in this modern NBA, it's really kind of hard to be.
It's just tough to win with a 6'1" guard.
Especially as your guy.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about that a little bit as we get to the Cavs later on. But yeah, I don't think that you can win a title with a 6'1" guard as your best player. And so, but I do think they're firmly in the playoff hopefuls. I would bet that they would make it rather than miss it would be where I stand.
I agree.
Okay, let's talk about the Toronto Raptors.
This is such an interesting team because they lose Fred VanVleet, which I think hurts them in the long run. But they're weird. They kind of remind me of the Brooklyn Nets a little bit, but I feel like I trust them a little bit more than I trust the Brooklyn Nets. I trust Pascal Siakam. I trust OG Anunoby a little bit more than I trust Mikal Bridges and Dorian Finney-Smith, for example, on the Nets there. So I would have them probably in the back end of fringe or up end of lottery here.
Yeah, I think back end of fringe as well. I think that they're the Raptors. They're going to try to win games. I mean, they were in the lottery last year, but they were kind of on the fringe. Actually, yeah, I think I am going to switch to top of lottery. I don't think they're going to be kind of in the play-in race. Are you okay with that? Top of lottery?
Thinking also losing Nick Nurse, I think hurts them a lot.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if this is a team that is selling like we expected them to pre-deadline this year.
Yeah, I know everyone is really high on their front office, but I think their front office is one of the worst in the NBA. I don't think Masai Ujiri is good at all. I mean, I think he's consistently miscalculated the market. He's misread his players' values. I mean, he's let a lot of talent walk out the door with nothing in return. It's like, I know that like this isn't a popular take. This is a super hot take, but I actually think he is not a very good GM. I think he's one of the worst in the NBA.
Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from there. Truthfully, I kind of agree there. I mean, losing Fred VanVleet for nothing really hurts them. Obviously, I don't feel like he's going to be your make or break. Oh, we got Fred VanVleet. We're going to be NBA champions type of guy. We're going to be in the playoffs.
And it's not even that he lost Fred VanVleet for nothing. It's that they traded a top 6 protected 2024 first round pick for Jakob Poeltl and then let Fred VanVleet walk for nothing.
Exactly.
And so it just doesn't make any sense. Like, you've got to pick a direction. It's just bad front office work. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. Really bad front office work.
Yeah, they're trying to do two things at once. It's just not going to work.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the Utah Jazz. So I think this team is really, really interesting because obviously they got John Collins for almost nothing.
A second-round pick
and Rudy Gay, which they were happy to get off Rudy Gay's contract. Basically had to stop themselves from making the playoffs last year because they were keeping it so tight with so many teams and winning way too many games when they should have been tanking. They showed they have great coaching. Lauri Markkanen showed that, he was a worthy all-star appearance, one of the most efficient seasons in league history. For me, they're definitely in the probably either bottom of playoff hopefuls or top of fringe category for me. What do you think, Ethan?
I think top of fringe is probably the most likely best spot for them. Just to kind of add on to that as well, they have a lot of young talent with Ochai Agbaji, Walker Kessler looks really good.
Keontae George.
There was not a lot of. You didn't see anything from Bryce Sensabaugh and Taylor Hendricks in the summer league this year. But if they can be as productive as they were in college, they're going to be great NBA bodies, great NBA players. Obviously, getting that John Collins ad for nothing kind of solidifies them as a team that's trying, I think, to push for the playoffs.
Yeah. Being one of the most athletic teams in the league and one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league is going to be a recipe for winning a lot of games. I know that they're a little lower probably in a lot of people's minds, but they're the team that's going to beat you if you have an off night. So, yeah, we'll go top of fringe there for Utah Jazz.
I think Rockets, I think they're still firmly in the tank spot. They're young. Obviously, getting Ime Udoka is really good for them. I think it gives them a solidified direction. You actually have a head coach that is going to keep these players, especially these young players, looking towards their future. And I think that's going to help them. But I still feel like they're going to be in the bottom half of the league. And I feel like very bottom of that bottom half as well.
For me, I would go bottom of lottery just because I believe that the addition of Ime Udoka, Fred VanVleet, and Dylan Brooks probably raises their floor a little bit. I don't think that they're going to lose nearly as many games as they did last year. I think that they'll add on to their total, and I don't think that they're really going to push for a play-in spot or a playoff spot, but I think that they're not going to be a tank, at least not on purpose.
I forgot about the Dylan Brooks ad. I think that does help them a lot. I think having that alpha type of mentality that Dylan Brooks brings could help them.
Yeah, definitely an overpay. And I don't like their summer really, but I do think that they're going to be a little better. Do you think bottom of lottery?
Yeah, that's definitely respectable there.
Okay. Let's go to the New Orleans Pelicans.
Interesting team, man. When healthy, the New Orleans Pelicans were one of the best teams in the West last year. They were firmly in first place for a good chunk before Zion Williamson went down and Brandon Ingram went down. I think here, honestly, if healthy, I think they're playoff locks.
I agree.
But can Zion stay healthy?
If Zion is healthy, I would put them in a playoff lock.
Agreed.
If Zion is not healthy, then they're fringe.
Yeah.
So it's like, do we split the difference? Just put them in a bottom of playoff hopeful?
Yeah, I think they're below the Knicks in playoff hopeful if Zion can play 60 games. But
yeah. They're definitely talented. Is the thing.
100%. CJ McCollum, Herb Jones, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, Jonas Valanciunas.
Trey Murphy. I love that dude. Trey Murphy.
Trey Murphy III is really good.
6'11", weapon shooter. People do not know about this dude.
Very athletic.
He is one of the best players in the league that gets no hype. He's one of the guys that I think is one of the best young players in the league. I think he's incredible. He is one of the best shooters in the league at 6'11", and he's insanely athletic. And so, yeah, we're going to put them in playoff hopeful, kind of split the difference there a little bit.
If Zion's healthy, that team can be really dangerous. Watch out if he can stay healthy, if he can stay on the court for more than 55 games.
Lakers. This is a really interesting one.
They're my first playoff lock. I think, again, this is kind of similar to Pelicans. If they're healthy all year, if LeBron James can rely on Anthony Davis, rely on these guys that he's supposed to be relying on at age of his 39th year season, they're going to be really good. But if LeBron James is going to have to carry the load like he has had to the last few years, they're going to be in trouble. I really, really like their offseason. I think getting Jalen Hood-Schifino as a young guard coming in for them is going to be good for come off the bench. Re-signing Austin Reeves for damn near nothing is huge for them.
That was the best contract in the league the moment it was signed. I love that contract, Austin Reeves. I also love, the work they've done getting Max Christie developed.
Yes, excellent shooter. Watch out for him this coming year as well.
Yeah, and so for me, honestly, like they would probably be in the bottom of favorites. I mean, they just made the Western Conference Finals as a 7 seed. I think with another season of gelling and meshing, that they're going to be one of the strongest contenders in the league, at least according to me.
To play devil's advocate here, I just do not believe in Darvin Ham.
Right.
And I'm not 100% sure that Anthony Davis is going to be playing more than 55 games.
Yeah.
And I think that really hurts them. But if healthy, they're definitely favorites. So I'm okay with them being a bottom half of favorites.
Should we put them top of playoff lock?
That's my thought process, just because if they're healthy, they're going to be one of the best teams in the league. They're going to be the team that you don't want to match them up in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But that's the question. Is Darvin Ham going to be able to adjust well? Is he going to be doing good?
Yeah.
Or are you going to have to trust LeBron James to do everything like they have for the last 5 years?
Yeah, so we're knocking them just for a little bit of uncertainty that they have, where they definitely could move up into the favorites tier, but we're going to go playoff lock for now.
But also, they got amazing, probably the best summer in the West.
Really good. I like what they did. Okay, let's move on to the Chicago Bulls.
See, this is one of those teams where I'm just kind of mad at. Like, what is your direction?
Yeah, stuck in purgatory, right?
You're okay with being a fringe play-in team for the next 3 years with Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan. Vuk is going to be, that's your big three. I'm not a believer in that. I feel like they had a perfect opportunity to sell at the deadline, to be able to really go down, get into the lottery, be able to get some good guys.
Hopefully keep their top 4 protected pick, but that didn't end up happening. It conveyed to the Magic.
Exactly. And so I feel like they kind of hurt themselves, kind of shot themselves in the foot by not selling. But again, this team is really talented. I'm not a big believer in like Billy Donovan as their head coach here. I just don't know if he is the right guy for them. I don't know if Zach LaVine or DeMar DeRozan is a true number one that can be your number one guy in the playoffs.
Yeah, I like their top end, but I don't like their depth at all, really.
Yeah.
I like LaVine, I like DeRozan, but outside of that, there's not really much. I like Caruso, I guess. But outside of that, there's not really much that I'm that excited about.
Is Patrick Williams finally going to take that next jump up?
Yeah.
Because he's kind of been like, oh, he's the next guy up. Is the next guy up? The paw. Like, is he going to be that guy?
Yeah, I think he's kind of where he is for me. So I would go fringe behind the Jazz, probably.
I agree, because they definitely have the chance to get into the playoffs. At least, I think they're my pick for a play-in spot this year, but I think it's so frustrating for them because they could be so much better.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. This one is very interesting. Obviously, they make the massive trade for Rudy Gobert. They put together, the 2 center lineups with Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. Kind of mixed bag results at first, but then Karl Anthony Towns get injured, is out for damn near 60 games. And so it kind of throws a funk into their whole season where they're kind of, trying to find some continuity, trying to find, just a way to, get wins and move up the standings.
Yeah. I think when they really relied on Anthony Edwards to be their guy and allowed Rudy Gobert to kind of do what he does best, protect the rim, they funneled the guys to Rudy Gobert, they really kind of saw the upside of this team. I'm not a firm believer in Karl Anthony Towns. I think the dude is immensely talented. He is very good at basketball, but he is not a winning basketball player. He doesn't help his team win. He does not improve them at all in my eyes. And then to pay him $60 million in this contract is rough.
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in Karl Anthony Towns either.
And so for me, what I think they should do is sell. At least sell Cat. Try to get off of him. But I think the addition of Mike Conley can really unlock Rudy Gobert. I honestly put them probably bottom half of playoff hopefuls or top half of fringe here. I really am a believer in Ant. And I really like the addition, and I really am a believer of Jalen McDaniels as well. Or Jaden. Or
Jaden McDaniels,
I'll mix up Jalen and Jaden all the time. So.
Yeah, I'll zag a little. I like how they looked at the end of the regular season. Mm-hmm. I liked how they looked in that playoff series against the Nuggets. I think that they honestly gave the Nuggets the hardest series that they faced by far. I don't even think there was really a close second to them. I love Anthony Edwards. I think he's a special player. I love Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert. Defensive combo, I think that gives them a very high floor. Depending on what we get from Cat is kind of the wild card to me. You know, if he's efficient and he plays smart basketball and he gets a little bit of chemistry going with the other three main guys, then I think there's a chance. I also like the addition of Mike Conley. I think he really helped them a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Getting someone that's familiar with Gobert, can run the pick and roll, and kind of get everyone into the right spots. And so for me, I honestly really believe in this team. I flirted with putting them in playoff locks, but for me, I would go top of playoff hopefuls.
I think what hinders them is that depth isn't very outside of Ant, Conley, Daniels, Gobert, Cat. I don't really like them. Naz Reid is really good, but they paid him a lot of money to be the third big on the team.
Yeah.
Kyle Anderson's not on that team anymore.
No, he is. Okay. He's still on the team. Yeah.
Kyle Anderson being on that team.
Has played really well for them.
True.
Yeah. They got Shake Milton from the 76ers. Pretty good piece.
I mean, their bench, their depth is a little bit better than actually thought in the first place. Thinking about it now.
I do kind of believe in the team a little. I know it's a little bit of a hot take and like everyone's clowning them for the Gobert trade, but I do have a little bit of faith in them. So for me personally, I would go top of playoff hopefuls. Where would you put them? And then we can split the difference. Because I think they have a better roster than the Knicks. I think they have a better roster than the Pelicans, probably.
Yeah, but I don't know if they're... I'm fine with putting them above the Knicks. Above the Knicks is okay. I think between the Knicks would work as well, just because I feel like we talked about the Knicks, they're a regular season team. So yeah. I don't know, but I think that's a good spot for them.
I just think the Timberwolves are better than the Knicks are. I would pick them.
So this is an interesting one. I like everyone is, like we said. But this one's probably the most question marks around this team with the Portland Trail Blazers. Is Dame going to be on the team? If Dame's on this team, they're probably high fringe, maybe even playoff hopefuls. Without Dame, they're bottom feeders in the league.
I think we've seen that even with Dame, they're not any good. And I don't really expect Dame to be on the team. I do think he's going to get traded. So for me, they would be firmly in the tank if I had to choose. Yeah.
That's okay with me.
That's okay?
I mean, like, giving Scoot Henderson the reins with Anthony Simons and...
Shaden Sharp. Love that dude.
I'm actually pretty different on that. I'm not really big on Shaden Sharp. I think he's just very athletic. So we'll see kind of where that goes. If he can become an efficient 3-level scorer, I really like him, but I'm just not a huge believer in Shaden Sharp. I don't think he's going to be a cornerstone for that rebuild in my eyes. But getting the steal of the draft probably in Scoot Henderson at 3 is huge. Because, you know, if they ended up with Brandon Miller or I guess one of the Thompson twins, it could look a little different. But Scoot Henderson is something else.
Yeah, for me, Scoot Henderson was the clear number 2 behind Wembanyama. There was no one even close to him. Miller, for me, wasn't even in my top 5. I view him a lot more likely as being a role player than as a star. I just think he does all the role player things. But I loved Scoot. I had him clearly number 2 on my board. I do view Shaden Sharp as a key piece to the rebuild. I think he's a lot better than Anthony Simons, and I think he's going to be for the future. And so, I mean, they tank 1 more year or 2 more years maybe. They get a couple more pieces, and they start building out a really nice core. I think they're firmly in the tank this year.
Something to think about, Cooper Flagg, just reclassified to be in the 2025 draft.
Yeah.
And so, hey, 2 years of them tanking, getting Scoot Henderson and Cooper Flagg on the same team, it'll be pretty fun.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into the Denver Nuggets. For me, they just won the title. They have the best player in the world. Jamal Murray's a playoff superstar. Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon are role player plus. They did lose some depth, so I don't think they're as good as they were last year because they did lose some key rotation pieces. But for me, they're still firmly in the favorites, and I would put them over the Milwaukee Bucks.
Ditto. Nothing else to add. Jokic is insane.
Yeah, he's absurdly good. Okay, Thunder. This is an interesting one because this is a team that a lot of people love, that a lot of people are super, super high on. What do you think about the Thunder, Ethan?
On paper, this is a team that is scary to match up against. The idea of running a lineup of 6'6" Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 6'8" Josh Giddey, 6'8" Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, who's 7 foot, and another Jalen, I think the other Jalen Williams like 6'10". Like, the matchup abilities on defense is absurd. We saw Chet in the summer league. He had some games where he was struggling, but defensively, he looked elite. His timing is super special. You saw Shea last year, All NBA, was phenomenal. I think this team could be really good, but I also think this team could be really bad.
I agree.
Yeah. It's going to be, they are the epitome of the Pete Alonso of baseball. You know, they are hitting for the fences every single time they're up the bat. And hey, that one season where they get a hold of that ball, it's going to carry, and they're going to be great. But you know, they might strike out 10 times out of 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
So for me, they are really good on paper. I'm not a firm believer in their coach. I think Mike no, I can never say his name.
Dagnalt.
Yeah. I'm not a firm believer in him. But when you have Shea on your team, you're going to be special. You're going to be good. He has the potential to be a top 10 player in the league. I think he already is, truthfully, talent-wise. But this year, I'm going to put him at the bottom half of playoff hopefuls.
I think that the talent is really good, but I think what we've seen is it's really hard to win on a team with no veterans. It's really hard to make the playoffs with just a group of young guys. You know, like I feel like every young team, like the Grizzlies are coming up next, you know, they have Steven Adams and a few other veterans that, you know, kind of kept them in line, to Dylan Brooks per se. OKC doesn't really have that. And it's like, I think they're going to have some losses that, you know, maybe they shouldn't have lost, you know, but their talent is pretty good. So I think that while they will take a step forward this year, I think it's entirely possible that it's not as big of a step as people are thinking, and maybe the really big step comes in the season after this one.
They kind of remind me of that OKC Thunder year when I think it was like 2010, 2011, or 2009, where they finally made the playoffs with Harden, Durant, and Russ. They were the 8th seed. And they gave the 1 seed Lakers with Kobe a run for their money, but they weren't quite ready yet.
Yeah, I would probably go either top or middle of fringe. I would go around there. I think they probably have a little more raw talent than the Jazz, but the Jazz probably better coaching, better veterans, and a little bit probably better defense, I would think. But it's probably pretty similar to the Jazz. They're pretty much a push to me.
Yeah, that's okay with me. I'll put them probably bottom half of playoff hopefuls, but
let's split the difference and go top of fringe then. Okay, let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. For me, this is a playoff lock. I think they have a lot of talent. I think they have a good culture. I think that getting Marcus Smart is a perfect fit next to John Morant and Desmond Bane. I think that's the ideal guy that you would have wanted. For me, they're a total playoff lock. They're below the Lakers, but they're a playoff lock, even with Ja's suspension. I just think number 2 seed last year, you know, high seed the year before. I just don't see a world in which they don't make the playoffs this year in the West.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to talk about the Dallas Mavericks?
I mean, nothing really out there for the Memphis Grizzlies. I think Tanner hit all the good points. I think the suspension of Ja is a little interesting, just because obviously Ja's their best player. But you see, when Ja was off the floor, they played really well without him as well. So I think the addition of Marcus Smart will kind of help diminish that loss. So I agree.
Yeah.
With the Mavericks, this is a team that can be incredible. And obviously, they have probably almost every game will have the 2 best players on the floor at all times, with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. But after that, it kind of gets a little iffy for me. Obviously, they took on some contracts to get some more draft capital. They traded in the draft to go get their guy in
Derek Lively and Omax Prosper.
And those 2 are great fits for them. They needed that lob threat. They needed that rim protection that Derek Lively could get them. But outside of Luka and Kyrie, I'm not a firm believer in them. I'm not really a firm believer in a Maxi Kleber deep playoff push. I'm not really a firm believer in a Josh Green deep playoff push. But when you have Luka on your team, it's kind of like Jokic and Giannis, you know, they're going to be great. I would kind of put them as playoff hopefuls, probably the top end of playoff hopefuls, because I don't see them being playoff locks, just because we saw how their struggles of last year especially at the end of the season, even though they were trying to lose at some points. It did kind of put some question marks in the air. Can Kyrie and Luka mesh together?
Yeah.
So for me, I would say playoff hopefuls. And then again, I've been talking about coaches all the time, but Jason Kidd is not it for them. They need a different change in pace. They need someone who can actually build a scheme around Luka, because Jason Kidd is not it.
Yeah, coaching is also an issue for me. I don't think Jason Kidd is good at all. I think he's a pretty terrible coach in the NBA. But I love their offseason. I think they had one of the best offseasons in the league. Signing Grant Williams, signing Derrick Jones Jr., a little bit of size and wing defense along to go with their draft pick, Omax Prosper, a center prospect, Derek Lively, and getting Richaun Holmes from the Kings for nothing. I really do believe in this team. I think they have a lot of talent. They have one of probably the 3 or 4 best players in the league in Luka Doncic. Kyrie Irving, his talent is undeniable, but his kind of a head case, as everyone knows. But for me, honestly, the talent is just too much. I know that at the end of last year, it didn't really mesh. They had just traded a significant portion of their rotation in Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith to the Nets, which kind of threw them off, I think. But for me, I would go bottom of playoff locks, honestly. I think the talent warrants that, but I'm fine to put them at top of playoff hopefuls. That's where
I just feel like it's going... If they can mesh well, it's going to be a team where they can score 150 points on you in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
I'm just not 100% sure if the defense can stay good all year. And again, Jason Kidd is just not someone I can trust in to rally a team around a single player like Luka. Maybe Luka can do that for him.
Yeah.
I don't think Jason Kidd can.
Okay, the Spurs. I think this one's pretty obvious. They're going to tank.
Yeah.
I think they're probably a little worse than the Trailblazers.
I think they're going to be one of, if not the most fun team to watch.
Just because of Wembanyama every single night. I like a little bit of the ancillary pieces they have there, but this is not the year. They don't have quite the amount of talent they need yet to be a playoff team around Wembanyama. I don't think they're really going to play him that many games. I think they're going to take it easy with him to start his first season. And so, yeah, I am going to go tank.
Well, with Victor Wembanyama, he hasn't played more than 70 games his whole basketball career. It's not the fact injury wise, but his seasons aren't that long. So why throw him in for 82 games right away? Risk him getting injured for a long time term. I agree with Tanner. They're not going to play him very much.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he even met the eligibility for Rookie of the Year, 65. I'd be pretty surprised at that. I don't think he'll win Rookie of the Year just because I don't think he'll play enough. But yeah, I think that this is probably a tank year for the Spurs, and that's totally fine, I think.
Well, Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, that team around him is decent. They have some pretty good players around Victor Wembanyama, but we all know this team's going to be built around Victor Wembanyama. They're going to be a free agent destination just because they got probably the greatest draft prospect since LeBron James on their team, and obviously with Greg Popovich as well. They signed him on for a longer contract as well. He's going to be there for a bit longer, and so watch out for the Spurs in the coming years. But I agree with Tanner. I think a tank to back into lottery is probably where they're going to be at this year.
Okay, let's talk about the Phoenix Suns. Another one of the most fascinating off seasons that we've seen. Obviously, they traded for KD at midseason last year. They didn't quite get the time to mesh because Durant got injured almost right away. They won 2 games against the Nuggets based on basically KD and Booker having 2 of the most efficient performances of all time, which obviously wasn't sustainable, and the Nuggets won all the other games pretty comfortably. And then they add Bradley Beal. They trade basically everything they have left through the entire kitchen sink at the Wizards to get Bradley Beal. So for me, they're probably a playoff lock just because of the top 3. And while I think the depth is okay, I don't think you're ever really going to have that good of depth on a team that's this top heavy. So playoff lock, probably the bottom for me. I think that probably Los Angeles and Memphis, both I would view as having a better chance to make the playoffs than the Suns, but they're still locks, I think.
I think another thing that's a little overlooked is getting rid of Chris Paul. As much as like Chris Paul is a great basketball player, he just was not ready. He was not good enough for them to make a big push. I think him on the Warriors is going to be an interesting concept. We'll talk about that here soon. But someone to also bring up is DeAndre Ayton. He's still on the team, which is crazy. And how is he going to mesh with Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, being maybe the fourth, fifth guy to get the ball? It's going to be hard. And, he doesn't give you as much value as a traditional center. Well, modern day center in just a lob threat and defensive versatility. So that can hinder them. But man, they're going to be a fun team to watch if they can work it out.
So the offense will be unstoppable.
I'm okay with them putting in playoff locks. I kind of agree there. I don't think they're going to be favorites year one. I don't see them having the depth they need or having the opportunity to go far in the playoffs unless Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker just go God mode like they have in the past.
Yeah.
Firing Monty Williams is weird.
It's a good decision. I think he's a pretty bad coach. Yeah.
But it's just like, it kind of shows that front office is not playing around and they want to win, and they'll do anything they can to do that. So
I think if everyone was healthy, they would probably be in the favorites tier. But it's a similar thing to the Lakers where they're a very, very thin team. And if one or two of their stars, who are both injury prone, Bradley Beal misses a lot of time with injury. KD misses a lot of time with injury. If they pick up injuries, then things start to look a little dicey. So that's why they're not in favorites. Okay, let's go on to the Clippers.
Another team that's going to is riddled with injury. If they're healthy, they're really dang good. If they're not, they suck.
For me, they're probably at the top of fringe.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Where Kawhi, we just saw in the playoffs, tore his meniscus. Who knows how the hell long that's going to be for him to get back on the court?
Could be 4 years.
It could be a year.
Could be the rest of his career. He might not play another game.
He might miss 60 games this year. You don't know. You never know. You can't count on Paul George being healthy. The team got worse because they lost Eric Gordon for nothing. Mm-hmm. Basically, this is crazy to say, their only hope is really trading for James Harden to somehow get them to the playoffs. But I think they're an old team that's kind of not that athletic in the league that's getting younger and more athletic, where the Clippers window seems like it's closed. It really, the window was 2019 to 2021, and they just missed it. They missed their window. And so I think they're fringe. They're a decent team, but would it shock me if they missed the playoffs? Not really.
It's one of those things where if anybody can do it, Tyronn Lue could. He gets stuff out of his guys that not a lot of people can. Russell Westbrook being on that team is interesting. Can Russ kind of have another revival in his season? Who knows? We all seen like Russ can be hit or miss. So it's going to be an interesting thing.
Okay, the Golden State Warriors. This is a fascinating one to me because I think the team got quite a bit worse over the summer. They basically swapped out Jordan Poole and a future first for 38-year-old Chris Paul, who kind of is on his last legs, doesn't really fit into what they do as a system, and was basically just a salary dump. Klay Thompson is getting old. He's very inconsistent. He still has those nights where he is hitting everything, lighting the nets on fire. But then he also has nights where he's a huge negative because he's 0 for 11 from 3. Mm-hmm. And so this one's interesting to me because Curry obviously is still one of the best players in the world. But around him, I just don't see a lot that makes me that hopeful for them. Certainly not as a title contender, but even, maybe as a Western Conference contender. What do you think?
This team reminds me a lot of the 2021-2022 Dallas Mavericks, where you're having a phenomenal player in Luka Doncic, and in this case, Stephen Curry, but guys that you're not sure you can trust.
You mean 22-23, the one where they missed the playoffs last year?
No, where they were.
They were in the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah,
okay.
Like a team, just like that type of team build. I'm not saying I don't know if they're going to be as good as that team in the playoffs, but relying so much on that one guy to do everything. And Luka was a lot younger than Curry was, and Curry is one of those players that can do it. But it's interesting. I feel it's refreshing to see a team just decide, we're not going to do the two era or timeline scenario with what the Warriors was trying to do with Jordan Poole, Kuminga, Moses Moody with also Clay, Draymond, and Steph. They kind of just said, all right, we're going to start developing Kuminga and Moody a little bit more, getting a little bit older, trying to get the next few years out of Steph's career and try to make a push. So we'll see what works out. I think they're either middle playoff hopefuls or the end of playoff hopefuls for me. I think they're a little bit better than the Knicks, but they're not as good as the Timberwolves or the Mavs.
I think I would probably put them over the Timberwolves, but not over the Mavs as far as playoff hopefuls.
That's fine by me.
Where I think at their top end, they probably are still better than the Timberwolves, but the Timberwolves just have a lot more talent on their team, a lot more depth than I feel like the Warriors do. So, and I just don't think they have as much talent as the Mavericks do. So I'm going to put them playoff hopefuls. Okay, Detroit Pistons.
I really like their draft. Getting Asar. Did you get Asar or Amin?
You got Asar.
I'm sorry. I'm just like, I can't even think right now. Mix those two up all the time. Amin went to the Rockets. But getting Asar Thompson on that team kind of is really interesting. Having a three, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Asar Thompson with Jalen Duran is a really young, really exciting team. I think they kind of are similar to the Thunder on that front where I don't think they have any veterans that can help them win games at the end of the day. I think they're going to be either back into lottery or top in a tank for me. I'm a believer in Cade Cunningham. I really like him as a player. I think he's going to be pretty dang good. Jaden Ivey is ridiculously athletic. He has a lot of upside, and then obviously the Thompson twins. Those two can be top 5 players in the league if everything works out for them.
Yeah, I think their best case is fringe. Their probably mid case is probably end of lottery, top of tank. And their worst case is they still could potentially be the worst team in the league. So I think top of tank probably is where I would go with them, just because I don't really think that they're going to be in the mix for a play-in, which these lottery ones will have at least a shot at the play-in, probably with a couple months left, and I'm just not sure that the Pistons will have that kind of shot. Yeah, okay, let's move on to talk about the Kings. The Kings, obviously, were the story of last year, the number 3 seed in the NBA playoffs. They made the playoffs for the first time in a super long time. Took the Golden State Warriors to 7 in probably a series that they should have won, I think, where I think they were the better team. They were more talented, but they just didn't have the playoff experience, the playoff resume that someone like Curry or Draymond or Clay has, and ultimately they fall in Game 7 to a magnificent Curry performance. Where would you put the Kings this year?
I think they're... I have to say playoff locks. Or playoff... yeah, I think playoff locks. I think they're just going to get better. I think they're guys like De'Aaron Fox, guys like Domantas Sabonis, another year of development offseason, a fully healthy whole season. It's going to be really good for them. I think they win that game if De'Aaron Fox doesn't hurt his breaker's finger. If Domantas Sabonis isn't getting beat up by Draymond Green every single night.
Yeah.
So
for me, I don't think it's a guarantee that they make the playoffs. So I would go top of playoff hopefuls.
That's fine by me because, things could I think one of those things where it's just a question mark. Like, if they do it again this year, I think playoff locks is going to be their future for a while. But, was it just a fluke?
Yeah.
Who knows? They came out of nowhere.
I think the league is so deep this year and there's so much talent that there's not a lot of guaranteed playoff locks.
Especially out west.
Yeah, there's so much competition for those that giving a lock, you have to be 100% certain they're going to be in the playoffs.
Even though our only locks are Western Conference teams, we're getting there. I promise.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Prime example. For me, I think they're a playoff lock. I feel like outside of the Bucks and the Celtics, out east, there really isn't a team that can really compete with those two. And I feel like you have 3 or 4 teams out east that are really kind of battling for that number 3 spot. I feel like the Cavs are one of those. I think they have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland on the team, both excellent guards. Their height's going to be a little question mark. But then picking up, I just forgot his name.
Max Strus.
Max Strus. To play that 3 kind of helps them out because that was their big question mark. And then guys like Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen could really take a big step this year. So I think it all falls on if Donovan Mitchell can be efficient again and rely on his teammates to help him out.
Yeah, for me, they would be the bottom of playoff lock.
Yeah.
Even though I think in a playoff series, I would pick the Kings and the Mavs over them.
Yeah.
But this is just for where they're going to be positioned at the end of the regular season, where I think the East is a little easier than the West. Well, quite a bit easier. And I think they're built for kind of regular season wins. So yeah, we'll put them at the back of playoff locks. Does that sound good?
Yeah, and I feel like if Evan Mobley can make that jump that everyone is hoping and expecting him to, they can be a really good team. But I don't know if that's going to happen, especially coming next year. So we'll see. The Boston Celtics. I think this is another team that's going to be one of our Eastern Conference favorites. I feel like having the Boston Celtics, they got better, maybe. Losing Marcus Smart could really hurt them.
It's hard to know. Yeah, because I think that there's a lot of ways it could go. I think the Porzingis addition gives them a lot of flexibility. It makes them be able to play like multiple different styles, not just kind of chucking away threes. They have a little bit of a different kind of look they can work through. But I also think losing Marcus Smart, who's kind of like the heart and soul of their team, could really hurt them. I think that there is some serious downside here, but there's also some serious upside, which is why they made the play, because they wanted to swing. They knew that they weren't good enough as constructed to win the title, and so they had to get good enough, and so that's what they swung at. And so for me, they're still in the favorites. Until I see it, I probably would have them at the bottom of favorites right now.
Yeah, Porzingis is going to be hit or miss. If the dude's healthy and they mesh well, it's a great pickup. They can run 3 7-footer, Robert Williams isn't really 7 foot, but having Robert Williams, Al Horford, and Kristaps Porzingis in the lineup, being able to rotate those guys, they're going to have so many different looks, be able to stretch the floor really well. Jaylen Brown, very good. Hopefully he can learn how to dribble with his left hand. Jason Tatum, top 5 player in the league probably. The dude really changed my mind. He's become one of my favorite players to watch in the league. And I'm excited to kind of see what they do and see how this team meshes. And again, losing Marcus Smart could really hurt them, or you might not even notice it. He's gone.
Yeah. Coming up is the Philadelphia 76ers. It's a team that I am probably quite a bit lower on than consensus. I think that the team is kind of one-dimensional. It's kind of easy to guard. Not really built for the playoffs. Don't really have, much that they can do because they've kind of been fully scouted. I think this team has kind of run its course. I think they'll still win enough games to make the playoffs, so I would probably put them in a playoff lock. But I don't think they have any shot of winning the title as far as the 76ers go.
Yeah, I just don't I don't believe in Joel Embiid. The dude is a perennial playoff choker, probably one of the worst star playoff players ever in league history. Yeah. The dude has routinely gone invisible when it comes to when it matters most.
He gets hunted on defense, offensively he's inefficient. He, when things get more physical, he has the propensity to, get banged up and have things go wrong with his body. And so, yeah, he's just a really big playoff dropper. And I just don't see a title in his future with him as the number 1 player on the team or with the Philadelphia 76ers. But I do think they'll be a lock for the playoffs. I think they'll win enough games for that. I'd probably put them over the Cavs, but behind the Suns.
Well, Joel Embiid has the body of Shaquille O'Neal, but he plays like he's Manu Ginobili.
Yeah.
He doesn't... If he decided, hey, I'm 7 foot tall, 265 pounds.
Yeah.
Nobody in the modern NBA can physically hang for him pound to pound in the paint. Give him the ball, he can back down. I don't understand. He plays like he's a 6'2", 150-pound guard that cannot handle contact, and it's infuriating to watch.
Yeah, it is sad to watch him do a lot of mid-ranges and turnarounds, and I guess he dunks occasionally, but only when he's really wide open. He doesn't really put anyone in the rim. Yeah, I think that he's quite a bit overrated, especially his defense, I would say, where people think he's some kind of stopper when he's really just a pretty average defender,
Just
I would
big.
say. Yeah, he's just big.
Who can move a little bit.
Yeah, we're quite a bit lower on the 76ers than other. It's just he doesn't use his frame to back people down, you know? It's ironic that he has the, you know, people think he's physical when it's funny that Jokic is actually way more physical than Embiid is. Probably the most physical player in the league. Will back you down, put you under the net, and just get layups right over you.
Yeah.
So,
you know, if Joel Embiid, again, we're pretty passionate about about the Joel Embiid situation. But someone to also bring up is James Harden even going to be on the 76ers come the middle of the season?
Yeah, and if he is, how does he look? Is he
exactly.
motivated? Is he super out of shape? Like, we've seen him destroy teams because of, you know, just not...
Is fat suit Harden coming out? You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
We don't know. So it's an interesting thing. Hopefully all goes well. I want the team to be successful because if they're good, the NBA's good. That 7-game series with the Boston Celtics was one fun watch. But man, it is interesting to see. Will be interesting to see what Joel Embiid can do after his MVP season and if he can continue to prove us wrong, I guess. Hopefully he can.
Okay, let's talk about the Charlotte Hornets. I think this is one of the worst teams in the league.
Oh, yeah.
I think that they just don't have that much talent yet. They're going to be a lottery team for a few more years until they can kind of build it out, you know. And so they're firmly in tank for me. Where in tank would they slot for you?
I think they're honestly the worst team in the league right now. I feel like the absolute fumbling in the bag of not getting Scoot Henderson really, really hurts them. Because they needed a guy that could get the ball in his hands that doesn't need to rely on LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, and alpha too.
Yeah, if LaMelo Ball, if he's healthy, the team's really fun to watch. They can be decent. They're probably middle of the tier lottery team, but you don't know with LaMelo Ball. The dude has struggled with injuries throughout his career. He hasn't been very efficient recently, and Brandon Miller. I don't know, man. He's
not my favorite player in the class.
He's
but
interesting.
Yeah.
He could. I hope he's good. The dude can shoot the ball as good as anybody in the league. I'm hoping that he can be efficient, but I just don't see him being true number 2 to LaMelo.
This is the one team coming up, Washington Wizards, that I think is actually worse than the Hornets.
Okay.
I think they have no talent almost besides Jordan Poole. The number 7 pick they just took, Bilal Coulibaly, huge project. You know, he's going to take a couple years. He's awesome physically, but he's not going to be ready right away. So, for me, honestly, they're worse than the Hornets. Where do you slot them in?
I'm fine with that. Honestly, when it comes to the that tank team, as long as the Pistons are number 1, I'm okay with how the order goes. Because I feel like the Pistons, for me, they're fringe lottery. And so I'm fine with how the order goes.
Okay, let's talk about the Orlando Magic. Another team with a ton of young talent, a ton of big wings. Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner. Yeah, just a lot of good players. Drafted one of my favorite players in the draft, Anthony Black. I like where they are. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. I don't even think they're going to really be challenging for a playoff spot. I think they'll be in the lottery again next year, but I don't think they're tanking necessarily. I think they're going to be trying to win games.
Honestly, I have them above the Raptors and the Nets here. I feel like they're a bottom half fringe team or even a top lottery.
Yeah.
It really kind of depends on what Paulo Banchero can do. If Anthony Black can do what he's expected, can he run this offense? They have a really interesting group of young guards as well. Like, is Markelle Fultz going to get that start, or is it going to be Jalen Suggs?
Or Cole Anthony.
They have 3 young guards they just drafted back to back. In Suggs, Anthony, and Black. Obviously, Black being 6'8" kind of helps them there. He can play probably the 1 through 4 size-wise. This team can switch up so many different ways.
Yeah.
They're going to be matchup nightmare in a few years, but I don't think it is quite their time yet.
Yeah, very bright future, but not quite yet. Okay, let's go with the Miami Heat. So the Miami Heat, obviously the big cloud hanging over is Dame Lillard. I do think they're going to have Dame Lillard. I do think that. And so I'm going to base mine based on that. I think they're going to be in the favorites. I think that the talent of Dame, Jimmy, and Bam, that's like as good a trio as there is anywhere in the league. And their styles fit each other. You know, like you see a lot of big three, like the Suns' big three comes to mind, where their skill sets are basically the same. They're overlapping a lot. Whereas a Dame, Jimmy, Bam, they almost don't overlap at all. And so it's like, it's almost a perfect big three, like fit-wise, because, yeah, just the fit is perfect.
My only concern, which can I even say it's a concern because it's the Miami Heat. They're the quintessential finding that random person that was undrafted to become a $20 million player. You know,
Yeah.
Can they have do they have the depth to make that deep playoff run? They've done it. That's the thing. They've done
Can
it.
they pull the rabbit out of the hat again?
Yeah, it's such an interesting
maybe
thing
Haywood Highsmith steps up and plays
Yeah.
massive minutes this year.
You know.
Maybe Jovic or Jaime Jaquez is ready.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they play right. Well, probably some of those are gone in the Dame trade.
Yeah.
But
like,
yeah, how does Caleb Martin do?
Yeah, exactly. Like, is Caleb Martin really that guy? Like Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals goes off. You know, is he really him? Can Jimmy Butler continue to amaze us? You know, the dude just comes out and becomes electric when it matters most. And then getting a guy like Damian Lillard on your team, a fringe top 5 point guard of all time, you know, you're set, dude. He's one of the most talented players on the Miami Heat, in Miami Heat history right away.
Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the league.
Yeah.
I have complete faith in him to make that trio work. I just think that is probably the best fitting big three we've ever seen as far as like complementary skills. I'm not saying it's the most talented. I'm just saying they mesh probably the cleanest, where you've got a guard, you've got a wing, and you've got a big. It's just it's the perfect mesh, really. So where would you put them? I missed where you said that.
See, it's weird for me because, like, on paper, even with Dame, I'm like, I don't know if I can say they're favorites, but like they've done it.
They just beat the Celtics.
Yeah, they've done
and they
it.
would be adding Lillard.
Yeah,
I think that they would beat them again.
That's the thing. That's the thing. So I would say they're honestly, I got to put them number 2 in favorites.
Yeah,
I think
that's
they're better
where I would go
they're gonna
too.
Be better than the Bucks. I think they're gonna be better than the Celtics. I would take the Heat with Damian Lillard, depending on what they give up. Because if they have to give up a lot, if they have to give up a Caleb Martin or a Jaime Jaquez, it might change. Jaime Jaquez probably doesn't change that as much, but I like him a lot.
But I mean, they become the number 1 buyout team too.
Exactly.
You know,
So-
like people are going to want to come to this place. I would put them number 2 just because I really think that catapults them into championship contention. Because like honestly, the series against the Nuggets was non-competitive because they just couldn't score.
Yeah.
They just could not score.
Imagine a guy
it's-
that Jamal Murray's going to have to worry about guarding Damian Lillard for 7 games for 40 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Or now with the Nuggets losing Bruce Brown.
And so
you get Dame on that team and you do that 7 games, I think that goes 7.
I mean, when you've got 2 guys in Jimmy and Dame who can go off for 50 points in any given playoff game, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. I like that, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the Atlanta Hawks. 2 left.
They're interesting, man. They remind me a lot of the 2020 Utah Jazz. Obviously, they have Quinn Snyder. They have 2 guards, 2-point guards playing your 1 and 2. They have a pretty bad defensive-minded point guard in Trae Young.
Yeah, their defense isn't going to be super good. They've got a couple good defenders, but their defense has never been good.
And then losing John Collins for nothing. Obviously, they want to get rid of his contract, but
It's just talent walking out the door.
exactly. And so I put them probably on like the top of fringe. I feel like they're on the outside looking in the playoff. I feel like they could get into the playoff, but like my most likely scenario is they're the 11th seed in the East. They're barely the 10th seed in the East, and they lose that first game in the play-in. I don't know though.
I think they'll probably be in the playoffs because I think that the East is worse than the West.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they're like a lock, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the Pacers.
This is an interesting one because I think the Pacers could be really good, but I also think they can be kind of mid. Does Tyrese Halliburton really make that jump? Does Buddy Hield continue to impress? Does Miles Turner really do well? Does Jarris Walker come in and really kind of solidify them and help them out a lot? Because, can he be that defensive stopper that he was drafted to be? Can he be a guy that can guard 1 through 5? Who knows?
Yeah.
For me, I have them above the Hawks personally. But I don't know if they're playoff hopefuls.
Wow, for me, we're really split on this one. I had them mid-lottery.
Okay.
So I think that they're going to be better, but I don't think they're going to be like that good. I guess I could see them pushing for a playoff
When
spot.
they had Tyrese Halliburton, when he was 100%, when he was healthy, they were a lot better. And then he got injured, and they really started to drop off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
They're in the Middle East. They're around the 4 or 5 seed.
Can we go fringe then?
Yeah,
bottom of fringe. That's okay.
Yeah, that works out. I personally, I would have them above the Bulls. Just as I think they're a younger team. They're better coached. I like Tyrese Halliburton a little bit better than I do Zach LaVine or DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, I'll put them above the Bulls. That seems fair to me. Where they just have a little bit of a higher floor, I think, than the Bulls do.
Yeah.
Where the Bulls kind of rely on a lot of tough shot making, whereas the Pacers can get their offense a little more organically, I think.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Tyrese Halliburton averaged 23 and 11.
Yeah.
Like, the dude can really carry an offense by himself.
Okay, well, thank you guys for watching. This is our tier list. Let us know whether we ranked your team too high, too low, just right. Please comment, like, and subscribe. We'll respond to every comment that you guys say. We love to interact with you guys. If you have any questions you want to ask, please comment them below, and we'll cover them in another video.
Give us some video ideas. Let us know, like, hey, should we rank the players in the tier list? Should we rank, like, why do we go into more detail on why we think the Cavs are where they are, the 76ers, or why the Nuggets are still the favorites to win a championship after losing Bruce Brown and stuff like that. Let us know.
Okay. We'll see you guys later.